The Tale of Despero, a book that 20-somethings barely remember and something I got tattooed on my body for the rest of my life. This is the tale of an ill-fated classic children's book's adaptation and the 8-year-old boy that had an existential crisis after 6 minutes of watching it in theaters that eventually turned into the video you're watching. The Tale of Despero, a book by children's author Kate DiCamillo in 2003, was by far my favorite book when I discovered it in 2008. When I was a spry 8 years old with optimism in my heart as I entered the theater for this adaptation. After those fateful 6 minutes, my eyes were open for the first time to the ability of adults being wrong. With this moment launching me into what would become a chaotic career in media so far. Yet over the years, I have not been able to get this movie out of my mind, requiring me to make this video to get my feelings out to the world once and for all. So I went back and reread the masterpiece that is DiCamillo's book and compared it to the opening scene of the movie. And I have 3 main points I want to go over to illustrate how Hollywood ruined this classic book. And I paid $15 to rent this terrible movie that I despise, so please subscribe so it doesn't go to waste. Thank you, and let's get into roasting this introduction scene. The first major mistake was clear. The titular character wasn't introduced until almost 20 minutes into the movie, and the movie's only an hour and a half. And with so little time, this was the most glaring mistake, as in the book, he's introduced in the first sentence, signaling to even a children's audience that Despero is who we're going to be really viewing this story through. Rather, in the movie, we're given the story of the entire village on this soup day, as well as the rat rescuero, which I have all sorts of problems with that I'll go into depth on later in this video. Still, waiting almost a quarter of the way into the movie to introduce Despero is just insane. This is like the first Harry Potter movie introducing the backstory of how Harry Potter's parents are killed and the entire Order of the Phoenix being dispersed into their different predicaments before Harry is ever introduced. This decision also leaves Despero's story with way less time to tell than in the book, with so many parts of this story changed or meshed together to allow for everything to fit nicely into a 90-minute runtime. I would say that this decision to wait and focus on a different element of the story was the reason why a lot of the other elements of the movies were considered well made, but not the story, which definitely wasn't the fault of the text, who presented a beautiful story about an underdog mouse with 2 big of ears and a needle for a sword to rescue a princess and save a kingdom in 270 widely spaced pages. The second glaring issue is its very prominent focus on magic, or what I'll call soup magic. In the book, soup is pretty important to the story, as it's what's connected to the death of the queen and is used as a way to show young kids how even adults can have unreasonable things when they're upset or heartbroken, as soup and other soup-adjacent things were banned throughout the kingdom due to the king's heartbreak. The soup never has any magical properties. Rather, the reason why a special soup created for the queen was so special was because it was revealed that the royal head cook has a deep admiration for the queen, providing a story an additional layer of emotional depth. In the movie, this is all replaced by soup magic. After the soup is cooked and prepped, a soup being forms out of the content to pretty much bully the chef for being a poor cook. This injection of magic here defeats anything to do with soup and makes it not as human. Rather, the soup is so good because it's just straight magic from a soup genie. In the process, this turns a character in the cook, who we meet as a heartbroken person not able to do what they're passionate about for the people they love, into a comic relief character with his soup sidekick and a desire to kill Despero anytime he's found in the kitchen. To go a little further, this change is annoying, as in the book, while magic must have some place to allow animals to talk to humans, the book never focuses or hints at magic being in the world. No one does anything magical, nothing turns from inanimate to singing, nothing is strange, other than animals occasionally talking to humans, even though it's extremely frowned upon in the animal culture, standard Toy Story rules. This strips away any focus on the magic, which is so common in children's media, instead focuses on a story between Despero and the human world he's affecting. It is truly a story of a hero who can't fight and an evil force that is just misunderstood. This idea creates a unique perspective in the children's literature landscape, and with its change towards a magic-focused movie, forced this movie into being just one of a million in the space at the time. I believe this should be taught in Book Adaptation 101. Never start with a scene that was originally a flashback. I already touched on this in the first problem. It's kind of crazy to start with this flashback with the rat rescuero, who in the book is the main villain until the very end, who in a flashback in the middle of the book is revealed to be a hopeful rat turned bad due to circumstances, with the end being that he turns good due to the princess. But in the movie, just some foreign rat trying to get some soup, that through a course of misfortunes and stumbles, partially due to the soup magic we talked about a second ago, leading to him creating the canon event of him falling into the queen's soup, killing her through a heart attack, kicking off the situations around the kingdom during Despero's death. This is a very poor way to make specifically a young audience care about the story, because contrary to popular belief, elementary school kids aren't completely brain mush when trying to follow a story. For 20 minutes, you talk about a completely different story and character that really doesn't have any impact on the story overall. Especially because in the movie adaptation, Riscuro isn't the big bad. Instead, another rat character is inserted that is pure evil, so that for the writers, it's easier to redeem Riscuro when at the end he helps Despero save the princess he endangered. The key issue is that for a lot of characters, we are introduced to way too early here in this flashback, causing us not to really care about what is happening. We don't care about Riscaro's anger for the outside world. We only see him happy until he's screwed over, rather than the sadistic, lying side of him first, then seeing what caused him to be that way. Or appreciating Princess P's compassion to Despero, as we only learn of her tragic past and her connection to rodents similar to Despero after the fact, as his whole first scene from the movie, which is mostly made up, doesn't appear until chapter 16, after Despero's story leads him to the part where he is in his darkest moment, just before he starts rising to the climax of the book and saves the princess. Putting the flashback to explain Riscuro's backstory here is way more powerful and meaningful for the story than changing his background from being a standard dungeon rat with similar curiosities of the outside world, creating a unique parallel between the main villain and hero, to a sailing rat who ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time, is forced to adapt to the dark dungeon he's never used to, being manipulated by other rats to cause all the issues for Despero. This issue for me was the biggest as I got older and really understood why I despise this movie, and felt like there was something deeply wrong with it. While these three issues played a major role in causing this movie to not only radicalize a young me in theaters, it also led to mixed reviews and a below-estimated box office return. But what really annoyed me about this adaptation was the production's disrespect for its youth audience. And I can say this as the target audience at the time, now grown up enough to say anything about it. The movie treated me like an actual idiot, when the book never treated me as such. The book treated me as a growing person, someone that's capable of dealing with more intense themes like death and tragedy. The book was written by a person who lives in the real world, someone that's aware that troubling things happen in even a young child's life, and isn't afraid to present it to them in a story, albeit in a compassionate way. The movie just did the same thing every other Hollywood movie did at the time, present a fictional reality where nothing painful or discomfortable really happens. Every situation is sanitized to fit the cartoonish standards of the medium. There is a good and there's an evil. There's no in-between or gray area. Instead, taking buzz, they chalked this movie full of recognizable names and hoped that they could make a quick buck off of it, rather than keeping the story intact and figuring it out from there. This is how you ruin a classic book in only 6 minutes. Make sure you subscribe so that we can continue to make fun little media video essays like this one. We jump back and forth in essays, so you can hear from your favorite Fleabag fan in a few months. So subscribe so you don't miss out on that.